Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sonali Mishra. I work as a relationship coordinator at FIAPO. And on the behalf of FIAPO family, I welcome you all in this session on volunteer recruitment and management taken by Mr. Shalabh Sahai. Shalabh is the co-founder of I Volunteer, India's first enterprise dedicated to volunteer services. He is also the convener of I Volunteer Awards that recognizes, celebrates, and inspires people in volunteering. He is also the co-founder of Jobs for Good, a boutique HR consultancy for social enterprises, non-profits, and corporate foundation. He is an alumni of IRM Anand and serves on the CII, Council for India at 75, and Global Council for Global Pro Bono Network. In this session today, Shalabh will be sharing his ideas behind hiring volunteers, aligning people's passion with the organization's goal, superior approaches, executing volunteer management program and recruitment. Also, he will be telling us about how to assess the impact. And this is for all the attendees. Please feel free to drop in your question in the chat box, which we will take after his presentation. With this, I say welcome, Shalabh. Over to you.
Hello and welcome to this workshop on volunteering. I hope you're all doing well and safe and sound. The topic today is very pertinent because volunteering is something that a society, a community, and a nation's progress is really built on. But what is volunteering? Of course, we know the basics that, volunteering is anything which is done out of your own free will for the larger social good, and largely comprises of contributing your time and skills for no monetary returns. Those are the basic definition that you will find in almost anywhere that you go, any organization, international, local, whatever it might be. But what is volunteering in the sense, why people volunteer? What is the outcome of volunteering? Who gains from volunteering? How do we promote volunteering? How do we attract volunteers? I think these are some of the questions, the answers to which aren't easy, and the answers to which also give the solution to some of our everyday volunteer management problems. Today, we're going to discuss and understand more about volunteer management in a little bit more detail. So, to begin with, what we already know is that, volunteers, when it comes to volunteering, they're very particular about the cause that they want to choose and the time and location of their volunteering and the nature of engagement. The causes in this case is, of course, pretty clear because we are part of this workshop. So we're talking only about one particular cause. But in general, volunteers might want to choose or might find options of what causes can they engage in. And there are, of course, umpteen number of causes. There are traditionally about 8 to 12 different causes. And now SDGs obviously define a whole lot of these. The next comes time and location. Now, a lot of times when we design programs, we assume that the volunteer should be available at a time and location of our choosing. But how much can we be flexible about the time that the volunteer has to commit to and the location of their engagement? Those are some of the aspects that we can talk about. For example, let's say that, we have a requirement of making a website and need a volunteer for it. Now, is it really required that the volunteer needs to come to our office or do it in a specific time? No, right? At best, the volunteer might be required to set up a meeting with us. And that meeting also is possible virtually these days. So we can be very flexible about the time and location. And then the next is the nature of engagement. Now, like I said, maybe there's a volunteer out there who espouses your cause and would definitely want to promote it by helping you establish your social media handles better. And therefore, the nature of engagement becomes social media engagement or using their skills because the volunteer is good at it. On the other hand, there might be another volunteer who might feel that, this is what I do day in and day out. And why not I move away from what I do on a regular basis, which is, let's say social media management. And why don't I directly go and engage with the people who are working on the cause or on the cause itself? Can't I work directly with the animals? Can't I work directly with the people who care for the animals? So the nature of engagement, also varies. But these are factors that have always been there, and nothing has changed over these. But what has changed is that the volunteer who always wanted the control to some extent is now even more an independent thinking person and is wanting to exert further control over the way in which they volunteer. So now what? There are these three additional factors that come into play. The first is that I don't just want options of time and location. I actually want to be able to volunteer anytime, anywhere, using any device. And any device comes in which actually throws in the technological loop. So a lot of volunteers out there would be ready to willing to support you, be engaged with you if you actually use technology to your advantage, if you actually use virtual volunteering to your advantage. The second is, can the volunteer define their own outcome? And what we have realized is a lot of times when we engage with the volunteers, a volunteer is much more happier when they actually can define their own deliverable. So, for example, we need, let's say again, let's take the example of social media management forward, and a volunteer to whom we define saying that you will have to put down in 1 month, do revise your Instagram page or something like that. Let the volunteer come and engage in a discussion, understand what your requirement is all about, what are your pain areas, understand that where are you lacking on social media, or what are your strengths and weaknesses, and then define their own outcome. When volunteers define their own outcome, then the ownership of that outcome is far higher and the results are usually much, much better. So for example, a volunteer who signed up just for helping you establish an Instagram page might be able to run it for the next 3 months and take it maybe from 0 followers to 500 followers in the initial phase. Might even take on the task of training somebody in your team to do it even better. The next comes my showcase. So gone are the days when the thing was neki kar or darya mein dal. You do good and then you forget about it, or your right hand doesn't know what your left hand is doing when it comes to giving. In today's world, a lot of people, a lot amongst us, do care about showing and sharing our lifestyle, our things that matter to us, our tasks, daily movements, small movements, big things, achievements, challenges, using the social media or using various other platforms. And therefore, the volunteer today wants to have their own showcase as well. So these are some of the things. So it's not just about the control in my hand of cause, time, location, nature of engagement, but also can I define my own outcomes, have my own showcase of volunteering, and can I control the way I engage with. I think these are some of the new factors that are coming into play. Yet, after having all of this, what we realize is most of the volunteers, when they begin, they still do not know what to do. And therefore, they do need that guiding hand, whether it is in the form of an I-volunteer kind of an organization that helps them navigate various kind of engagements, various causes, various non-profit partners, or a volunteer who directly comes into your organization or to you, and you guide them how can they engage in your cause, in your organization, what are different tasks, and how can they contribute. So it's kind of a paradox. The volunteers have the control, want the control in their own hands, and yet they need a guiding hand because they're not really sure about what to do. What we also learn today later is about why people volunteer, because unless we know why people volunteer, it is impossible or next to impossible for us to retain volunteers and attract new volunteers. And then the other key notion that we'll also spend some time on is volunteering can change lives, but whose lives are we talking about? We'll get more into the details of that. But I do want to kind of, predefine some of these things that we want to begin with. One is the volunteering is usually defined as of two different kinds. One is hands-on volunteering, where people actually engage not necessarily their skills, but their physical bodies in kind of doing volunteering. Usually, it is kind of defined again into two different types. The most common is one-time group volunteering. You find volunteers who are joining up a Seva Mela, find volunteers who are going and cleaning up a beach or a park, find volunteers who are running an election campaign. I'm not talking about election campaign of a political party, but let's say a voting campaign for, let's say, youngsters to vote. Now, it is a one-time volunteering, and usually it is done in a group format. But the same could also be kind of done in an individual to individual format. For example, let's take the case of getting people to vote. Now maybe you give tasks to volunteers to go door to door, and that becomes individual volunteering, though it's one time. The key thing over here is that the volunteer is signing up for a one-time commitment. They're not signing up for a lifetime, year-long, 1 month long, every day 1 hour kind of commitment. They're saying, I will come in today and I will do whatever you need me to do today. But this is where my commitment ends, and I will think about my commitment thereafter, later. What's also kind of emerging more closely, and especially in this COVID times, is family volunteering. Volunteering need not, especially when it comes to kind of middle-aged people. Volunteers want to be able to engage their families in doing so, want to introduce their families to the causes and issues, but also to make sure that they're spending some quality time in a new way by volunteering together. And this is something which is just picking up. It's pretty much prevalent in North America and Europe. We need to kind of do something out here in India as well. I'll take an example of a volunteering that we organize. It's called Tell a Story. Now we basically record stories. We ask volunteers to record stories in their own language and dialects for children who don't usually have access to good stories because their parents don't tell stories or can't tell stories. Now, when recording a story, we can actually get a mother and a child, or a husband and a wife, to actually do role play of 2 or 3 characters and record the story. It becomes more fun for the people who are recording it. It becomes more fun for the child who's going to hear it later on. And it's a family activity of kind of doing something together. So that's one-time volunteering. And then there is regular engagement. In regular engagement, usually the most popular formats of service delivery come together. So whether it is teaching, whether it is caring for animals or caring for elderly, or it is helping with mentoring of the young people, it is a direct service delivery format. Now, hands-on models have always been popular since times immemorial. But what's becoming more popular these days is skills-based volunteering. Skills-based volunteering, I gave an example earlier of somebody helping you set up your social media channel and maintaining it. That's skills-based volunteering, because not everyone can do it. Hands-on volunteering is usually something that anyone can, but skills-based volunteering asks the volunteer to share the skills, the professional skills that they are trained at and that they use as a part of their primary occupation. Can they share those skills? Can a banker help you with financial management? Can artist help you with graphic designs? Can a software developer help you put together a management information system? We'll learn more about those skills-based volunteering things as well. So welcome again, and we'll be sharing this further on volunteering. We'll be delving deeper into some of these causes, and I look forward to